Good morning and welcome to the Dan Beasley Show. Today is uh, July the 31st, 2013. It's 7:47 a.m. in the morning. Our weather conditions are looking fairly well for today. I think there's a 60% chance of rain in South Carolina, and it looks like there's scattered showers across the locality. And we've got some other news coming out of the tropics that we'll go into later. Right now, we've got a breaking news item with American Airlines airplane blowing tires after landing, and this is coming from Reuters. And this was something that happened when a 737, not a 787, but a Boeing 737 carrying 137 passengers on board and a crew of 5 blew 2 tires upon landing at the O'Hare International Airport on Monday. No one was injured, the carrier said. Um, the 2 tires were on the left main landing gear. They blew out when they landed in Chicago from Reno, Nevada, and the passengers were evacuated from the plane with portable staircases and taken to a terminal on the bus. Maintenance staff changed the tires, and Fagan said that the plane was due to be put back in service after being checked out. Next on our agenda for today, we've got militants attacking a prison in northwest Pakistan. Pakistan has sort of like been a stand-in between ally and enemy at the same time for us. It's been a bittersweet situation. For years, they tried to acquire nuclear capabilities, and we tried to keep them out. If any of you remember the old movie Back to the Future, they were Pakistan terrorists at that time trying to acquire a nuclear device. They have since acquired one, and they are since a major player in the area. Although they are sworn enemies to India, and occasionally India and Pakistan fight over this little strip of land between them called Kashmir, and they do some, you know, some exhibitions of their military might with nuclear devices and things of that nature, just to show that they do have the power, but they do it on their own territory. This is coming out of Dera Ismail Khan in Pakistan. Dozens of Taliban militants armed with guns, grenades, and bombs attacked a prison in northwest Pakistan, freeing more than 250 prisoners, including 25 dangerous terrorists. The militants killed 6 police, 6 Shiite Muslim prisoners, and 2 civilians during Monday night's attack in the town of Dera Ismail Khan, said the town's commissioner, Mushtaq Jadoon. One of the Shiites was beheaded. 15 police were wounded, said Jadoon. And that was the story coming out of Pakistan. We also have another train incident that occurred in Switzerland this time. The last one was in Spain. There's a Swiss rescue workers were wheeling wounded personnel out of on stretchers after 2 regional trains crashed head-on near Granges Press Maynard near Payerne in western Switzerland on July 29, 2013. The 2 trains collided in the Swiss canton of Vaud on Monday evening, injuring about 40 people and 4 others seriously. The Swiss news agency ATS reported there was no immediate report of any deaths in the crash. And moving to our next story, we have something on the political front here, and it's an attempt to so it's a devious election plot to bypass the Constitution. The strategy takes 36 states out of the voting decision. As you well know, we have a popular vote in this country, and then that popular vote determines the number of electoral votes that that state dedicates towards that particular candidate. and those electorals or electors attend a constitutional convention, electional convention, to where they cast their votes, which in turn elects the president, and it's supposed to be verified and everything else. Of course, the national popular vote effort, which could see only 14 states, those with the largest populations decide the presidency for voters in all 50 states. Is fully partnered with the George Soros, who is a very, very wealthy um, Syrian billionaire. He's partnered with him, funded by his election group. The group, the Center for Voting and Democracy, received original seed money in 1997 from the Joyce Foundation, a nonprofit organization that boasted President Obama and served on its board at the time of the grant. Obama was a board member from July 1994 until December 2002. The National Popular Vote, or the NPV, is run by individuals with a history of support for the Democratic Party, WND WorldNet Daily found. Last week, the Washington Post reported the NPV is now halfway to its goal of electing future presidents by the popular vote, after Rhode Island Governor Lincoln Chafee, Democrat, made his state the latest to sign on. The Post story described the NPV as a campaign seeking to get states that comprise the majority of the 538 votes of the Electoral College, which is 270 to be precise, to agree to award their electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. This is another way of ensuring that the Democratic Party will stay in power. Moving on to our next story. The Democrats are likely to nominate this Republican for prez. It's an interesting caption. And it says the next presidential election is still 3 years away, but top-rated radio host Rush Limbaugh is already making a bold prediction about who will be the likely nominee for the Democratic Party. Says, I think it's going to be Chris Christie, Limbaugh says in his national program Tuesday. He says, I think in the contest in 2016, the Democratic side is going to be between Rahm Emanuel, Andrew Cuomo, and Chris Christie. What makes the prediction especially noteworthy is that Christie, the governor of New Jersey, is at present a Republican, and he would have to switch parties to be nominated by the Democrats. On June 5th, Limbaugh brought up the possibility of Christie looking to lead the Democratic ticket, saying at that time, I'm not predicting it officially here, but I will not be surprised if when 2016 rolls around and Governor Christie is seeking the presidency, I won't be surprised if he seeks the Democrat Party nomination. And he says, it's my intelligence guided by experience, he says, noting the decision will have to be a special election for the Senate seat. Okay, that leaves you some food for thought there, folks. Moving on to our next story. Everyone knows what GPS is. It's global positioning satellites. They give you your location from satellites that are orbiting out in geosynchronous orbits around the Earth at around 25,000 miles out in space. And there's 24 of them, one for each hour of the day, and they're all in geosynchronous orbit, meaning that they always travel over the same position of the Earth at the same time, never running into each other. And because of this configuration, they can give you your position within 20 feet of where you are anywhere on terra firma, which is Earth, of course. The source is coming from SC Magazine. A team of university students have demonstrated that it's possible to subvert the global positioning system. which sends out navigation signals to pilot super yachts without tripping alarms. The experiment was conducted in June this year with the permission of the owners of a 65-meter or 213-foot super yacht worth $80 million US, and it was called White Rose. It sailed from Monaco to the Isle of Rhodes in the Mediterranean. A team of mechanics and students from the Cockrell School of Engineering at the University of Texas and Austin were on board the White Rose, with the experiment taking place some 50 kilometers off the coast of Italy in international waters. Faint GPS signals were broadcast by the students with a spoofing device and the size of a briefcase aimed at the positioning system aerials of the ship, in other words, their antennas. The authentic GPS signals were slowly overpowered by those transmitted by the spoofing device, after which the students had gained control over the yacht's navigational system. So if you think that you are where you think you are with your GPS, think again. You may be led into a trap, or you may be led into a hijacking, or you may be led into some other kind of a dangerous situation, like driving over a cliff or driving into a lake, or just ended up driving out in the middle of nowhere where someone could take advantage of you. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Our next news article is about the federal mortgage bailout program that we just recently came out of. The federal mortgage bailout program sees at least 25% or a quarter of the homeowners redefaulting on loans that they were being given modifications for to help them make it through without having to foreclose. So at least 25% of those are going to foreclose again, or they're underwater again. Nearly 1.2 million mortgage modifications have been completed since the Home Affordable Modification Program, HAMP, was launched 4 years ago. Yet more than 306,000 borrowers have redefaulted on their loans, and more than 88,000 are at risk of following suit. The Special Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, SIGTARP, found in its quarterly report to Congress. In addition, the watchdog found that the longer the homeowner stays in the HAMP modification program, the more likely they are to default. Those who have been in the program since 2009 are redefaulting at a rate of 46%, the Inspector General found. HAMP, which was launched by the Treasury Department at the height of the foreclosure crisis, aimed to help as many as 4 million borrowers avoid foreclosure by making their payments more affordable through reduced interest rates, extended loan terms, or in some cases, reduced mortgage principals. Not only has the program fallen far short of that goal, but with each year of the program, a growing number of homeowners have redefaulted, the Inspector General found. So what is the cost to the taxpayers? Well, as of April the 30th, taxpayers have lost $815 million on the permanent mortgage modifications. They have redefaulted. That's almost $1 billion. So anyway, that's in the news. We're still swimming in shark-infested waters with our economy, and the job market doesn't look any better today than it did a few years ago. In fact, you're saying now almost 5 out of 6 Americans are living near the poverty level or sub-poverty level, and they're out of work. So moving on to our next news statement. New Hampshire police. The New Hampshire State Police are viewing peaceful libertarians. Libertarian is another political party, and the Occupy activists, the people that occupied Wall Street rather. They're viewing them as terrorists. So they will be dealt with as terrorists, obviously. Police in Concord, New Hampshire, have applied for a grant to acquire a new $258,000 armored vehicle from the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, to combat domestic terrorism. According to their application, they cited active threats from domestic terror groups like the Free State Project and the Occupy New Hampshire group as the primary reason for requiring this military equipment. In its grant application to DHS, the police department said that New Hampshire's experience with terrorism slants primarily towards the domestic type, and said the threat is real and here. And groups such as Sovereign Citizens, Free Staters, and Occupy New Hampshire are active and present daily challenges, the application stated. In addition to organized groups, it cited several homegrown clusters that are anti-government and pose problems for law enforcement agencies. Notably, these domestic groups were the only specific parties named as terrorist threats in the grant request. On the national front, our spying espionage problem and program for the NSA is affecting other countries in negative ways. This story is coming out of Germany, and it says that the NSA spying in Germany is turning a parliamentary democracy into a banana republic. Well, we've heard that statement, a similar statement made before, that America was becoming a banana republic. The largest espionage scandal in the 21st century is shaking Germany, wrote Pierre Steinberg, the man who is desperately trying to unseat one of the most popular German politicians, Chancellor Angela Merkel, as massive anti-NSA protests spread across the country. Talking about Germany. Well, not quite. 1,000 demonstrators straggled through Frankfurt. It's going to be tough for him. Edward Snowden's revelation of the widespread U.S. and British spying on German internet and telecommunications, and Germany's own role in it, damaged the confidence in the democratic rule of law, and suspicions were growing that the constitutional rights had been systematically violated millions of times, he asserted in the guest commentary in the Frankfurter Rundschau 56 days before the election. The SPD's candidate for chancellor and erstwhile finance minister under Merkel's Grand Coalition government of 2005-2009 was running out of time. And back in June, 100 days before the election, only 14% of the German voters believed that he could become chancellor. While 78% believed that he was electoral roadkill. But even among SPD supporters, moroseness has taken over, and only 22% believe that he didn't make it. The spy scandal may be his last chance. Only a big debacle could unseat Merkel, but Germany was on vacation, and the government would simply not allow any big debacles to transpire before the elections. So anyway, that's the story coming out of Germany today regarding our own NSA spy scandal and its international influences. We've got a national weather story coming from Hawaii. It says Flossie leaves little damage in Hawaii. Well, it was downgraded to a tropical depression while it was in Hawaii. It did not strengthen into a full-blown hurricane as we've seen here in the U.S. However, it was highly unusual that a tropical storm or a depression would hit Hawaii at all, given its position in the ocean and how small it is, a smaller target. It was classified as a tropical storm, but then weakened into a depression Monday afternoon, and it has not had any real organization or well-defined center since. Consistent with climatology, Flossie quickly weakened on its eastern approach to the Hawaiian Islands, and the combination of dry air and wind shear, as we've seen, but other tropical cyclones this season spelled the demise for Flossie. Flash flood watches were still in effect on Oahu and Kauai in the western part of the state, but by mid-morning in downtown Honolulu, skies were gray and streaks of blue and scattered rain. Um, Utility workers were working to restore power to parts of Maui, and where about 500 households scattered around the island were still without electricity. Fire poles and electrical lines came down, cutting power to some of the customers, and the Maui electric people are working to restore power to those areas. We have another story coming, a weather story coming our way. Tropical Storm Gil is now forming in the eastern Pacific. And you heard it right, the East Pacific. This is kind of like unusual where first Flossie and now Gil are both coming from the East Pacific. Tropical Storm Gil continues to gain strength. It's almost 900 miles southwest of the tip of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula. Gil is expected to strengthen to a hurricane by Thursday before weakening as it encounters the twin nemesis of increased vertical wind shear and stable dry air. Same thing that killed Tropical Storm Flossie. It will move west-northwest over the next 5 days with no imminent threat to land. However, while unlikely, it's not completely impossible that Gil or some remnant of Gil could pass near the Hawaiian Islands next week. So this may be a redo of Flossie. This is the sixth time the name Gil has been used in the Eastern Pacific. First Gil was in 1983 and it passed just north of the Hawaiian Islands as a tropical storm. So its projected path right now is north-northwest. And so it's not really a hurricane yet. It's still a tropical storm, but we'll keep our eyes watched on that, out on that for that storm, and keep watching for further developments and keep you informed as they occur. That concludes our news segment for today's show. And we're 22 minutes into the show. It's a 30-minute show on average. And I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss some issues with you concerning what is the security level in your home and in your life and in your house. You have bolts, deadbolts on your doors. You have locks on your cars. You have keys in your pocket. You have security systems, installed in your home, and also you carry security items around with you, such as pepper sprays and things of that nature. But there's nothing that can prevent you from having an accident. Accidents occur more in the home than any other place, and they kill more people under the age of 45 than disease. So when you think about it, whether you're 45 or older than 45, you're still subjected to an accident. You're still in danger. There's a possibility of it happening. It could be a fire. It could be you tripping over something. It could be you've taken a fall. It could be almost anything. Almost anything. But what would that do for you if something was to happen to you and you were taken out of your family and they were left without you? Even worse, what would happen to you after you lost your life? Where would you be? What would be your future? I know there's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of discussion going on, and a lot of different religions that tell you different things. But consider the fact that you have inside yourself right now an image that you will always be here, no matter whether you're 5 years old, 15 years old, 25, 35, 50. 55, 75, you still think you're going to be here. And that's the idea of eternity. The concept of eternity has been planted into man's heart. And just as before we came here to this earth and we were born into a family and we were born into a human body, one day we will have to vacate that body, or that body will cease to exist and it will return back to the elements from which it came. And you see everything around here. You're like a witness to seeing all these marvelous, miraculous things that the earth has to offer. I mean, the air, water, food, clothing, cars, sky, sun, moon, stars, the ground itself, other people, communication to other people. All these things exist, but yet we take them for granted every day and we don't even realize it. Because we've seen them every day of our life, we just take them for granted. But these things are miracles. I mean, what if you didn't have vocal cords? What if there was no air? What if there was no water? What if there was no sunlight? What if there was no blue sky keeping us safe from the dangers of space and radiation? What if there was no vegetation to give us oxygen? What if? But you got to think about this, because this is important to you. You're living in a world that's full of danger, and you're not promised the very next second, let alone the very next day. And you know you're mortal. You know your body is mortal. But what about the part of you, the essence of you that makes you you, the part of you that makes you who you are, the personality part of you? What about it? Does it survive death? There have been lots of experiments and lots of books written on NDEs, near-death experiences. And some have been written by doctors that have actually experienced them. And they all say that there is a life beyond this life. Now, there is a book on this earth, and it has been assembled and put together over thousands of years by 600 authors. And these authors were very devout people. They were not fools. They were not people given to writing fables and fairy tales. And they were very serious people. And the last 36 books, or I think it's 36 books of the Holy Bible, were written by common people just like you and me, that had the opportunity to walk with a very special person who one day they found out had special powers. And he told them of a place where there was not any death, not any sickness, not any heartache, no thieves, there was no darkness, there was no hunger, there was no starvation, and every being could live there in its pure essence. And he called it heaven. He called it heaven. And he also described another place. He says there's a place also, and he used as an example as a fiery dump that was outside of the city of Jerusalem at the time he was alive. And he says there's a place called Gehenna, or a place, that is a place for things that don't belong, that are useless, that are garbage, that need to be destroyed and dispensed of. And this place is called hell in some cases. Well, he described a literal hell. He used that as a figurative example, but then he went on to describe a literal hell, a hell that you and I are both subjected to go to if we do not follows the prescribed path to heaven. And you know what that prescribed path is? That prescribed path is to accept the teachings of Jesus Christ and take up your cross and follow him like he took his cross up. He did the Father's will. He came to earth to save the world, not to condemn it. God had only one son in the human family that he himself called his son. And his son was called Jesus Christ. And he was born to a poor family way back 2,000 years ago in a city called Bethlehem. And he grew in grace with men and with God. And one day, and he worked as a carpenter for 30 years. And then one day he started his ministry. And he started healing the blind and the sick and the poor and freeing people from demonic possessions and bringing people back from the dead and doing things. And he was doing it in the name of his Father. He says that he should be about his Father's work. When his mother asked him what was he doing, and he astonished the scholars. He astonished the people that were learned in that day, that were well educated, and he became a very popular figure. But because of his popularity and because of his power, he engendered a lot of danger and a lot of anger from the people that hated him, that wanted him destroyed because he represented something that they were not and could never aspire to be. So therefore, they wanted to eliminate him, or at least to decrease him. But their hatred ran so deep, they really wanted him dead. And they put him to death. They had a mock trial. They had him scourged, which means that his skin was literally ripped off his body. He was then dressed and mocked like a king, which he said he was the king of the Jews. And then they gave him a scepter, and then they took all that away from him and gave him a crown of thorns and all that. And they dressed him back up in his regular clothes, and then they put a wooden beam cross that weighed a tremendous amount of weight for a man that had lost a tremendous amount of blood, and made him walk and drag his cross all the way up to the top of a mountainside and lay there and let them nail his hands in an outstretched position from one end of the cross to the other. They nailed his hands. They nailed his hands at 2 points, one on the left, one on the right, and they took his feet and put one on the top of the other and drove a nail through it, and then stood the cross up. And everybody was mocking him, spitting in his face, hurling insults, telling him to come down from the cross if he was God. But you know what? He endured it all. He took the entire beating all the way through. And when it was finished, he says it's finished. And he went and he gave up his spirit. But he did it so you and I and everyone else could go to this place called heaven. Otherwise, we had no other choice but to go to the place called hell. He did it out of love. He took a beating for you. He took a beating for me. What will you do for him today? Make a decision to live for him today. Give yourself to him. Start following him. Start reading about him. And then start living your life out according to the way he tells you. Let him into your heart. Let him rule your spirit. You will never ever regret it. For heaven is eternal, and so is hell. And the fires of hell never go out. And it's hotter than any fire ever been on earth. And you can be rest assured that whatever you suffer here on this earth as a Christian will be of such insignificance by the time you get to heaven that you'll wish that you had done it years sooner. Please consider that today for yourself and for the other members of your family. because this country, this world is grinding to a halt. It's coming to a halt, and there's going to be a bloodbath that the world has never seen. And people are going to be killed and eliminated. And there's going to be a huge battle where it's going to take 7 years for the bodies and everything else to be buried. And it's going to be literal hell on earth. If you don't go to hell in the flames, you'll be in hell on earth for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. So why don't you make the obvious choice and choose Jesus today to be your Lord and Savior. This is Dan Beasley wishing you a good and godly day, and hoping that you'll join us with our next broadcast. Thank you, and God bless you.